Hello, and this is the second episode on the Python Guide series. Today we will be covering. What did you say this down? Today we will be covering input, more, a little bit more on variables. We'll be using those a little bit, and we'll also be covering if and else statements. Okay, so let's start off with a recap of what we did last time. So last episode we covered the print statement. So let's want to print hello. Remember to put the double quotes or single quotes. It doesn't matter which one. However, you can't just use both. If you see that it's green or if you've changed it, going into options and configure idle. Not going to do. But if you see that it's green, it means that it's classified as a word. And we don't want that. So what that will do is it will print hello. Okay, so what if we just go back there? Then what else did we cover? We covered maths, didn't we? So let's see, want to do x equals 5, and then y equals 6. Then we could do x plus y, and remember, do not put that because these aren't going to be classified as words. These are meant to be variables. Which brings us on nicely to what else we covered last episode, which is variables and simply what they are. So they are ways that you can assign numbers or letters or basically whatever you want to a letter, or it can be a combination of letters. So let's say I could change that to XA. I don't know where that came from, but XA. But we'll have to change that, otherwise it won't recognize what it is. And you can see we've got 11, which is, if we just go back here, 5 plus 6 is 11. And that's really all that we covered in the last episode. So how about we get straight into it and start talking about input. Now, input is probably one of the most used things in Python, in my opinion. What it allows you to do is take a user input. Now that may sound a little bit confusing, but it means that the user can answer, let's say, a question. So let's say I wanted to ask the user, what is your, if I can type your name. And then let's say that I wanted to set it to a variable, because that is mostly what you're going to be doing with this. Because otherwise you're just going to get an input. And it's just going to be an input. You're not going to do anything with it. So yeah, even if let's say that I try to do a print input. Okay. If we try to do that, we'll just, what I mean is, what if I just put yes, then it will say built-in function input, and that basically means that you're printing a function. Okay, it didn't give me yes or anything. So what you're going to want to do is assign that to a variable. So we're going to want to put, let's say, x, or let's call it name, is equal to input. So now we can print the actual name. So you can print name, and if we run it, then you can see that if I put in yes as my name, see it's printed out my name. Now this can be very handy, and we're also going to be making a little calculator game. We're going to be making a little calculator game that will hopefully be done by the end of this episode, and we should hopefully be able to understand it. So the next thing I wanted to cover was if and else. And we're not actually going to be covering the end, even though that is in orange, which means it is a function. It is a function, but I don't think we're going to be covering it. So what you put if else. Okay, so that's that's the other thing that we're going to be covering. So what are ifs, if and else statements? Well, they are functions, and what they do is it's basically a computer's way of thinking. So let's say this is much easier to demonstrate. So let's say we put x equals 5, then say we put y equals 5. Then if we wanted to, then let's say that we said if y is greater than x, and that's why you do greater, you just put the greater than symbol. Then, and you need to put colon here, and if you press enter, it should go you 4 spaces in front of the where the if is. It should be 4 spaces in front, so you go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you can also get that by pressing tab, but what that means is that Python will take this as that is part of the if state. That's what it's meant to do when that is true. So if y is greater than x, which it isn't, then let's say that we call, say, print hello. Okay, and if we also put in, let's say we want to put in an else statement. Okay, so you put in else, then and you put in print, so that you can tell the difference. How about put in by? I don't know where this is all coming from, but yeah, how about we just put in by? So which one do you think will activate? Will it say print hello or print by, or will it say both, or will it say neither? Well, let's see. It will say by, and that is because what if does is it compares and it sees whether this is true. Okay, so it sees whether that is true, and if it is true, then it will go on to what it says here. What else does is basically the opposite. So else will do if that does not activate. Okay, so if it does not print hello, it will print by. Hope that made sense. So basically all if does is it sees whether what you put in front of it is true, and in this case it is not. So what about if you put equal equal, and what, so that basically means, you probably haven't learned this yet, but that means that if they are the same, equal equal means same. So what that will see is whether y and x are the same, then it will print hello, and if that is false, then it will print else, by, and you can see you've got hello because they are both assigned to the same. You can see x is 5 and y is also 5. So let's say that we change that to 6 and try it. You can see that we've got by. Okay, so how about we just start making a very simple calculator game. This is just going to be very simple, nothing too complicated, just that you can get a little bit of experience in all of these functions. So how about we start off with an input? How about actually assign that to number 1? So what this is going to be doing is it's going to be taking a number that the user is going to input. So we're going to put in input, let's say, what is your first number, and if we put in number 2, then we input what is your second number. So then what you want to do is also ask what they want to do to those two numbers. So whether they want to, what do we call this, let's just call it operation. And input, what would you like to do? And how about we also include a little thing over here? So type in, let's say you want them to type in maybe divide. So that they don't type in something random. Let's just give them a few options. So divide, multiply, add, and subtract. Okay, and now we come to full stop. Well, you don't have to, but I'm going to do that. So now what we're going to do, if we just run this, how about we print all of those? So I print num1 and we print num2 and we also print num3. Oh no, we don't have num3. We have an operation. Otherwise that would have given us an error because it doesn't know what num3 is. So if we just put in our first number, let's say just say 5, we put in 4, let's say I want to add, it won't do any addition because we haven't put anything that does the addition in there yet. So how about then we just take all of these out and we actually crack on with the actual code that's going to be doing it. So this is going to be a mix of if statements, some, yeah, I think it's just going to be some ifs really. So how we're going to code this is going to put if operation is equal to, and as this is as they're going to be giving a word, we want to put in quotes divide, or how about you do add first. Okay, so if they are the operation that they've inputted is add, then we're going to do print, then we're going to do num1 plus num2. Okay, and that is all you need for add. So what if we do that again, but for minus, or what do you put that, subtract. So subtract, and remember to put those quotes, otherwise it might not class it as a string. So we're going to put in those quotes. Then we're going to do print num1 minus num2. Okay, then if operation is, then what about do divide. So from the last episode we covered how to do all of these calculations. Num1 slash num2. So I'm not really okay. And if we do if operation, so this is the last one, operation equals, what did I put there, multiply, print, how do I repeat those? It's like an instinct to put in quotes. Num1 times by num2. Then we should have a working calculator system. So if we just put in, let's say do 5 and 4 and you want to add them, then we've got 54. Okay, that's a little bit weird. How did that happen? How did you get 52? Because it's num1 plus by num2. What if maybe these are giving in a string? Yeah, so how about actually cause of this error? I think I figured it out. How about we actually just cover the types of data in Python? Because that is going to help us in solving this error. So we have in Python, we have string, we have int, we have float, and those are the main ones. Basically, string and int are the ones that you're probably going to use the most. So string, int, and we also have float. And is it object? Is there object? Yeah, I think there is also object. Okay, so how about we cover strings, ints, and floats also? Because we might as well do that because it's a very important part. So, what is a string? How about we write this in hashtag on comments? So, a string or str as it is shortened is basically is a group of letters, or it can also be, I think it can be numbers or numbers, letters or letters or numbers or symbols. Okay, and there can also be letters and numbers, and there can be numbers and symbols and all of that kind of stuff as well. So then what we have also is integer, which is another one of the ones that we are going to be using a lot. An integer or int is a group or a number. Okay, so that's what an integer is. And a float is a decimal basically. So it's like you could have 2.5 is a float. Okay, and that's really all you need to do. You don't really need to know about objects for now, but these are the main ones. Okay, so now that we have that in mind, how about we try and solve this error? So what if, and how about we also, actually I forgot to talk about how to define them. How to define something as let's say you want to define something as an integer. So you want it to be classified as an integer. And for integer, what you do is brackets around it. Okay, and it's same for float. Okay, so I wanted that to be a float, then that would be how you define it as a float. Onto the string, we do this, or you can also just do this if you want to define it like that. But usually I'd say it's best to do brackets and double quotes or single quotes or whatever you want to do. Okay, so now that we know how to do that, how about we try and figure this out? So what is happening here is inputs, they always give a string output. Okay, so they will always give an output. So they will always give an output of a string. Okay, so they will always give an output of a string. Even if it's a number, they will give it as a string. And what that does is, if we just quickly just copy this so that we don't lose all of it, just copy that and then you can delete it. What that does is, if we just do print, what do you want to print? How about to actually make two new variables? So test1 equals the string b, and test2 equals the string, let's say c. And then if we print test1 plus by test2, you're probably expecting this to just give an error because you can't add two letters. But let's see what it does. We just do this and we'll just put in H. Then see, we've got BC. So what plus does to strings is it combines them. So it's doing B plus by C will give you BC. And we don't want that. So what this is doing is the input is giving out a string. So let's just say that our num1 was, let's say, it was 5, and that is a string. It is a string. Then you put num2 was, let's say, 6. So what that would be doing is num1 plus by num2 is what our script told it to do if you're doing addition. So if we just put in, and so you've got 56. So you can see that instead of it combines them, and we don't want that. So what we want to do now is define that as an integer, so that when we add it, it won't just combine the two values, it will add them. It will actually add them. And the way that we do that is, practically you could just put two brackets around it. Practically, well, not two, you could just put one bracket around it. That would probably classify it as an integer. But what I like to do, just because, well, I like to be a little bit over, is just put in int. So what that will do is define it completely as an integer. So now if we paste the code back in, there we go, and so now we should have it. So if you put in 5 and 6, then you put in add, you can see you got 11. So great, it works. But what if we want it so that if they don't put any, we can also even make it so that if they don't put anything in, then we print, oops, looks like you typed something wrong. Okay, so now if we type something in random, so we put in that and then we just put in this, then it will say, oops, you typed something wrong. But occasionally, especially with big scripts, all of these if statements, let's say that you had a massive script, okay, a massive script, and you had so many if statements going one after the other, it can get a little bit laggy. So what I would recommend is putting one if at the top and then changing these to elifs. And what that means is, elif basically means that it is else if. So if operation is not add, then we'll go on to the next one. So else if that is that. Otherwise, if operation is add, that else will not go. It will not run that else. So it is basically else if, and that will help your code to be much less laggy on big if and else, just repeating and repeating. It will help it massively to be much less laggy. So that's what I would recommend doing. Putting one if at the top, then changing all the others to elifs. It will still function the exact same. If we just run this, then we put in, let's say, 5 and 6, and we divide, let's say, then we've got this. We've got a number. Yeah. And I think that's going to be it. So as you can see here, we have got a working calculator with and you should hopefully know how to understand this, and you can also hopefully know how this works. That's going to be it for this episode, and I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you later in another episode. Bye.